Katrina, Kwame, thanks for joining me after a magnificent MedTech Color networking breakfast this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And that was your first networking breakfast.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
And that was your seventh, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
So welcome to MedTech Color. It's great to have you on board, of course. You had a career in healthcare before joining MedTech Color. So share a little bit about that for the viewers, and then what attracted you to MedTech Color? Because I know he can talk anybody into anything, but really, what attracted you?
Yeah. So I'm what you call an association executive. So I have been in the nonprofit business for over 25 years. And one of the things that's special about associations is that you get to work with different professions and really help to build that community and harness resources to help advance the profession. Before joining MedTech Color, I had the honor and privilege of being the CEO of the American College of Nurse Midwives. And it was in that role where I really got to focus more on diversity, equity, and inclusion because of the maternal health crisis and because of some of the challenges that midwifery faced with respect to growing the workforce and also diversifying it. Opportunity with MedTech Color came around, and it's one of those things that never happens. You know, it's not often that you get to be a part of an organization at the very beginning. It's not often when you get to engage with the board when they're founders, and it's not often that you get to do something that you really believe in, like diversity, equity, inclusion, as a part of your full-time job. And so when I met Kwame and other members of the board, I felt like I was coming home. And so the choice for me was easy. And I'm just happy to be able to do what I love every single day.
Yeah, and it's the old adage, just grab a seat on the rocket ship and go. And it doesn't matter what seat, but you've got a very important seat right now. Right, Kwame, Katrina's seat, why is that such a critical role where we are right now?
Well, you've been with us from the beginning, Joe, and we were, up until Katrina, primarily an all-volunteer organization. And we had some great partnerships with Johnson & Johnson and MedTech. Early on, Danaher, Kevin Lobo for Stryker always supported us. But we really didn't have someone who day in and day out woke up and thought about growing the organization in a thoughtful way. So when we met Katrina, we knew she was going on paper, but when we met her in person, everything she said lined up. It was in congruous with what she looked like on paper. A thoughtful, strategic leader, and that's what we needed. So the timing was perfect, and we made her an offer on the spot. So
yeah.
It was a perfect fit.
And you accepted on the spot, you think about it?
And I accepted on the spot.
What has been one of the bigger surprises, or a few of the big surprises, after you got on board, locked down on your desk the first week to where we are today? What's been the big surprises?
I would say one of the biggest surprises for me was that when you start to have strategic conversations with large companies around DEI, they're not always sure what they want to do, you know? And oftentimes they're leaning on me to help frame their trajectory. And I found that to be surprising. You know, we're talking Fortune 500 companies who have a vested interest in diversifying the workforce and making sure they have the right leadership. But they hadn't necessarily thought through how to get from point A to point B. That was a big surprise to me. And frankly, I used that as an opportunity this year to figure out whether or not MedTech Color had the right objectives as an organization. Are we really meeting the needs that we need to meet? Many of those conversations help inform and really crystallize our mission, which remains the same. But the goals, I think, are appropriate given some of the conversations that I've had with some of the larger companies.
It's really interesting because it remains an initiative in the medtech community as a primary initiative. And every company has aspirations of current state, future state, and it's really hard to nail it down from an objective interview because it's hard to put a specific metric behind that.
That's right.
But helping organizations work through their playbook is what you feel responsible for right now.
I do. It's I mean, it's a big responsibility, but again, and I think about MedTech Color and the courage that the founders had to even start to be at the beginning of driving that solution. It's an opportunity, you know, as well as a challenge. But again, knowing what their objectives are, and it's also then making sure that they align with the vision that the founders set out from the very beginning. That's that sweet spot that I think will help to really launch the organization into the future.
Yeah, and the founding mothers and fathers of MedTech Color having those initiatives be very, very clear, but also editable over time, because the landscape better change.
Yeah. I would say Katrina's being modest. There was a little bit of resistance to messing around with our mission and goals, but she got us in a room, a strategic goal-way at AvaMed. Our mission is actually stronger now. It really aligns, and it aligns with our goals. And we had to grow because, quite candidly, we were talking with sponsors who didn't think we were clear enough.
Yeah.
And Katrina said, we need to get crisper and clearer. And I think you saw it this morning. I mean, we've had presentations with 1 or 2 numbers, but Katrina gets there and says, this is how we've invested in African American women. These are the outcomes we're driving, very concrete, very specific. And that's because she wakes up every day thinking about MedTech Color, which is great.
Yeah, but also you've got experience knowing that the people who are making decisions at the large strategics base most of their decisions on metrics.
That's right.
And if we're going to be asking to be partners and then be sponsors for us, we better speak their language in order to get at the same table.
Absolutely. It is that heart and mind alignment, right? It has to be. So intention is great. Action and delivering is what keeps that intention, you know, moving forward. And, you know, so I think with MedTech Color, the work had been done. It was just digging a little bit into, we need to quantify this. We need to demonstrate our impact so that at the end of the year, when we're coming back out to a partner and saying, listen, we want to partner with you again, here's what we've done. It becomes a slam dunk. And then we're developing deeper relationships, more strategic relationships, less transactional, right? And then we move on to help grow that reach.
Yeah, and those that are supporting, it's becoming very, very clear, because this past year, as you had touched on this morning, DEI, underfunding, resources pulled from it, and major corporations like Google and Meta and DoorDash and Harley Davidson and others. What's behind that?
So I think there are 2 different camps. One is, quite candidly, it was a trend in reaction to George Floyd, and it was temporal, and not, as our keynote speaker said, baked into the DNA, and really commitment from the top. So that's one camp. We also are having conversations with big logos who demand results, impact, metrics. That's a second camp. I lied, there's a third camp. The third camp is, we're committed, but the HR leader we're talking to says, my budget got slashed by a half. So it's those 3 combinations, but you still see some logos that you've seen year in and year out, because they don't have any of those issues, the J&J MedTechs, the Mullings groups. There are organizations who said, nope, this is what we believe in, and we're going to support you through thick and thin. And those are the ones have kept us going through 2024.
What has to happen, Katrina, from your perspective, and you shared some of it already, is I'm going to give you metrics that are going to be able to have you evidence-based keep moving forward on this. What else has to happen in corporate America beside adhering to the metrics?
Well, you know, if we're into some truth telling, I think that part of this is once we get that no because a budget has been cut, then it's my job to leapfrog that and get to who the decision maker is. Because we're talking hearts and minds. There are certain metrics that you have to show, but when it comes to health equity, there are certain things that are the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. And so I think continuing to tell MedTech Color's story, the reason why there's a need to continue to diversify the workforce, diversify leadership, you know, I think really reinforcing what we all know to be true. so that the folks that pulled back, perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of let's wait and see how the environment shifts, understand that it's up to them to make the right decision in that moment, because patients are counting on them. And this is kind of where my healthcare mindset goes back to. MedTech is an extension of healthcare delivery, right? So if we're negotiating whether or not we're going to invest dollars in an organization that is creating impact, what are we negotiating? You know, are we negotiating lives? And so I think continuing to tell that story and how what we're doing makes outcomes better for everyone, by the way. And one other piece I want to touch on with MedTech Color. While we are MedTech Color, I would also like to add comma and allies, because I think one of the benefits of and I think really valuable outcomes of this organization is that hearts and minds and relationship deepen in this organization, and people change the way they have thought about things because they're interacting with someone on a daily basis on a common objective that is different from their own lived experience, right? We all move through the world because of the lens that we have based on where we grew up, who our parents are. I mean, this is the depth of who we are as people. I think MedTech Color as a professional home, as an organization where people can find each other, it really has an opportunity to help grow more allies and just more like-minded people who understand that health equity is the goal. And we all can help have a part in advancing that.
It's interesting because there was one word this morning on the slide that I'd never seen before, allies.
Yeah.
I don't ever recall that being in a deck.
It's new, but you know, last year I kind of joked and said our bestie Jamie is in the house, Jamie Wheeler. She's a great ally. TMG has been great allies. You saw the CEO of GE Healthcare up on stage committed to this. And it's something that we don't shy away from. We know to get where we need to be, and it's not transactional. We align with people who see the power in this idea, no matter what color they are, yeah, for sure.
You mentioned outcomes. So we've got a new generation, or how do we educate, like actionable educate the next generation of physicians, caregivers, and the healthcare community in order for us to have way more equality in the delivery of healthcare and outcomes. So, like, not just we want to do it, how do we do it?
Yeah, I think, so one of the relationships that we're really proud of is our relationship with the National Society of Black Engineers, where we're interacting with aspiring engineers from the collegiate level all the way through to advanced. And I think the how is really partnering with organizations like that, where we can collaborate around what are the professional resources that people need at different career stages, because that changes. I think the sweet spot for MedTech Color is that after those professionals have entered into early career and then mid-career, what resources do they need, either from a deepening their network perspective, from a mentorship perspective, from a skills that you need to learn about contract negotiations, becoming ready to sit on a corporate board, those types of strategic but necessary skills that you need to not only succeed in medtech, but stay in medtech, because we see that drop off, right? As people get deeper into their career, and then by the time they're supposed to be tapped for a leadership position, the pipeline is small to non-existent. So I really feel that we have a real role there in making sure that we identify that core curriculum. And we do have a new education committee, which is all volunteer driven, which is going to do just that for 2025 and beyond.
And we have friends now. We have Lamont Bryant, formerly of Johnson & Johnson, now at Stryker. We can sit down with him and say, how do we support you in your organization to amplify support of people of color in the ERGs at Stryker? Carl St. Bernard just took a new role. So we have supporters in this ecosystem that are committed to this, and we can be a conduit to the younger generation to help that happen long term.
And then finally, Kwame, got all kinds of allies, sponsors, partners in MedTech Color. What's the one sponsor right now, if I asked you, put it on the table, Kwame, that is not part of the squad today that would help us move forward another major step?
You know, at a very tactical level, we want the 10 largest medtech companies as partners, period. But beyond that, Abby mentioned it briefly. There's a lot of opportunity in partnering with foundations. She briefly mentioned it, but there evidently, GE Healthcare has a foundation focused on maternal health. And it's something as a board, we've talked about informally, should we have a focus on maternal health?
Yep.
And we would align with the foundation. So those are two very discrete partners.
Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Kwame's spot on with respect to kind of nailing not a disease state, but sort of a condition and a direction for us to go as a med tech community. I think maternal health is a no-brainer because of its impact, and also too because of the awareness among consumers about the issues. And I think that as we start to think about defining what our strategic priorities are as an organization, we have to be mindful of like healthcare delivery. You know, what are the issues that are relevant to the consumers that is top of mind for them, so that when we're out in the world, we're relevant. And you know, that's a way to elevate our brand as an organization and hopefully help us to align with some of these larger corporations that perhaps have similar priorities, and they can see us as a means by which to advance their goals.
Yeah, well, there's like, I can make some introductions if they're not already here. We got Hologic, we have Cooper Surgical. How come they're not sitting? That's me saying, not you saying.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, it's always a pleasure for me to sit with you, Kwame. Katrina, I look forward to working very closely with you and the Mullings Group companies. This has always been a blast for me.
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
congratulations again on the 7th year and 600 plus people versus 75 7 years ago.
Absolutely.
We're making progress, but there's 4,000 people here, so 3,200 people missed it. We'll get them.
That's
There
right.
we go.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Joe Mullings from the floor of the MedTech Conference in Toronto. Be well.